Welcome to the Expansive with Anna Gatmon podcast, where we talk about how to participate in the spiritual evolution taking place at this time on our planet, how you can accelerate your spiritual growth to meet the challenges of our times, and personal tools to help you thrive, flourish, and help shift human and planetary consciousness. Because 1 degree shift can change our world. I'm your host, Anna Gatmon. Thank you for joining me. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Expansive with Anna Gatmon's podcast. Let's dive straight into today's topic. It is how to stop negative chatter in your head. And I picked this topic because it was a comment in my first episode. I asked people to share any topics that they might want to focus on. Which I could address in one of my podcast episodes. And a lovely lady called Laura asked the question relating to negative chatter in your head. And how do I stop this negative chatter that's going on in my head? Now, I can relate to it personally. I'm sure you can too. Most of us have a certain percentage or degree of negative self-talk going on in our head. So let's dive straight in to Laura's question, and then how we might work with this negative chatter to allow it to relax, to stop, so we can have some freedom instead of feeling constrained, self-tortured in a sense, and unkind to ourselves. And even paralyzed, right? We get paralyzed and we can't advance because we just keep saying negative things to ourselves. So here is the question that Laura posed. How do you help the negative self-chatter that keeps you from spiritual growth? What techniques would you recommend? So then I asked her, because I didn't know exactly what she's talking about. I said, are you talking about inner conversations in your head with other people and putting yourself down, or constant inner negative self discouraging yourself to do things? Because those are two different things. Both are kind of loopy thoughts that we have, either just putting ourselves down with negative self-chatter, or we had an interaction with someone, we're not pleased with how it went, or we feel we were not heard or unseen, and then we just keep reliving and having this conversation with that person again in our head, hoping for a different result when it just loops in our head again and again, and we feel awful at the end of it. So I asked her, which do you mean? And to which she responds, it's my own doing. When I feel that there is a great idea, I'll ruin it with don't bother. Nobody will want to listen. You're not intelligent enough. So I have great ideas and I want to engage, but now my mental chatter has me paralyzed. Familiar? Have you ever had this? Well, I have constantly. And so here is what I do and what I want to offer you as a few suggestions. So first of all, the principle I want to apply is the principle of profound simplicity. This is not huge mental activities that you now need to do. And if what I tell you is so simple, how can it be that simple? Well, guess what? Practice profound simplicity, because the answers to many of our pains and challenges and suffering is simple solutions. If we, instead of trying to do now another thing, we just relax, we slow down, we do something more simple, we bring more ease to our response, our solution will be much more efficient, effective, create wholeness, more self-love, self-kindness, and kindness towards others. So open yourself to profound simplicity solutions that I'm going to offer here now. So first of all, I want to give you just a simple physical tip that you can try out. So take your tongue and make it really heavy at the bottom of your mouth, like this. So just kind of hanging like this. No, you can't really talk like this, right? Just relax your mouth like this at the bottom of the tongue. It's not at the bottom of my tongue now because you wouldn't understand what I'm saying. But when you relax your tongue and you make it kind of thick and just let it lie there at the bottom of the mouth, pay attention. Your jaw has to drop. My voice is dropping, is slowing down. My neck, suddenly something opens for me there. My shoulders kind of relax as well. And the biggest thing is your thought pattern is stopped. It just stops your thought pattern in its tracks. And so you cannot continue the loop of negative thought that you're having when you do that. So that's a very profoundly simple thing that you can do. Then if in 20 seconds afterwards or 30 seconds after you do that, you start thinking again, your tongue is not like this anymore. I mean, even me just doing it now for 5 seconds, suddenly my mind is not racing even with what I need to say next or how I'm going to get this opposite episode all organized. And what do I say before and what do I say after? Suddenly my mind is empty for 5 seconds. Just do it with me for 5 seconds. It is so releasing. It's like suddenly my mind is resting rather than racing. And so that is really a simple thing that you can do whenever you catch yourself having negative self-talk, of whatever kind, whether it's as a result of an interaction with someone that didn't go well, or whether you have a great idea and then there's another part that comes in and puts yourself down. So that's one thing that's very handy. You can do it. You can sit in a meeting. You can be driving in your car. You can be cooking a meal. You can be resting. You can be working by your computer, and you just take 5-10 seconds. You do 30 seconds with a timer. 30 seconds of no thoughts. Amazing. Just so relaxing. The whole body, the whole nervous system can finally let go and relax. So that's one thing to try out. Now, the other thing, and I'm going to start with when you have negative self-talk that has to do with you having a great idea, which is the question that Laura asked in the comments. I have a great idea. She probably has it in a moment of inspiration when her mind and her being is expansive and she's feeling just aligned with who she is, congruent with who she is at her essence. And then a critical part comes in and starts to say negative things about her. So the negative chatter starts coming in, right? In your head. You're not good enough. You'll never make it. It already exists in the world. Nobody needs to do it again. All of these just nasty things that if you actually would hear somebody else talking like this to somebody else, to a child or to an adult, you'd be horrified. You'd be horrified at what we tell ourselves. We would be horrified at what we tell ourselves that we wouldn't allow to be said to anybody else in our presence, and yet we say it to ourselves. And it is soul crushing, but it's so much part of who we are that we don't even think that it's soul crushing, but it is. And that's what Laura was talking about, right? So here's the principle, another principle to pay attention to. The principle here is at work, that's at work here is, are you congruent when you have any thought, positive or negative? Are you congruent with your soul, with your higher self, with your divine essence? Or are you not congruent? Are you out of congruency? That's the simple question to pay attention to. Now, your higher self, your divine, your inner divinity, your soul would never wish anything that you wish on yourself that's negative, that's soul crushing. It's soul crushing. It would never do that. It would only empower you to grow, to do good things in the world, to be who you are at your essence, to live your purpose, to serve, to do good in the world. So when you're in a negative self-talk with this negative chatter in your head, you are not in congruency. You're not congruent with who you are at your essence. You're just not. So it's important to know that, because you're going against who you are at your essence, and you're telling yourself things that are against who you are at your essence and what your soul would wish for you and what your inner divinity would wish for you as the magnificent, magnificent, beautiful human being that you are and that each one of us is. And so the best way to counter negative talk, negative chatter, is with positive chatter. And you could call it affirmation, positive affirmations, but I want to take it out of an affirmation, because an affirmation feels like it's out there in the world. Maybe you have a sticker of it, but I want you to put your hands on your heart. What can you say, tell yourself, which would be a kind sentence, instead to counter the negative sentence that you're telling yourself? What might be something kind and loving you could tell yourself? So, for example, I am working really, really hard. I just wrote my second book, Shift Calling, and I just launched it, promoted it. I've been working really, really hard. And I can look at the numbers and said, oh, I didn't sell enough books. You're never going to make it. You didn't sell enough books in the first week or the third week, or nobody signed up for your course, or nobody loves you. You're not worth much. There's a long list of things that I can, and I do tell myself. Now, we don't always notice that we have this chatter, but this chatter eventually just wears us down. Imagine if somebody externally would say these things to me: you're never going to make it. You are not worthy. What you have to say has no value. That would, my whole physique, if somebody outside would tell me that, my whole physique would slowly contract. My heart is closing. I can almost feel tears somewhere there underneath. It is soul crushing. It is pure soul crushing. And so when you catch it happening, counter it with something that's aligned with your higher self, your highest self, your inner divinity, the sacredness of who you are, something kind and loving about yourself. So, for example, boy, you're a hard worker. When you set your mind to do something, you do not stop. Or, I see your devotion. I'm telling myself, right? So these are things I'm telling myself, and you'd be telling yourself. You see, it's different than an affirmation. It's really talking to yourself from your heart. I see your devotion. You want to share with the world the gifts that have been given to you, that have come through you. You have been told, we've shown you the kingdom. Now claim it and share it with others. And I so appreciate your devotion. No matter how hard you have to work, you just continue and continue and continue, because I see at your essence, Anna, that you want to share with the world the gifts that have come through you, the perspective on human suffering and possible transformation that have come through you, and you want to gift it to others. You want to share it with others so they can do the same. I see your devotion. Now that feels very different in my body. You tell yourself something now like that. That feels very, very different. I feel seen. I feel heard. I feel loved. My whole system, you hear I'm talking slower. My whole system, my shoulders are relaxing. I'm not feeling this constant assault. It's never good enough. Don't even bother. Don't even try, like Laura shared in the comment. Don't even start. Don't even It's a great idea. No, don't even do the first step. I've done a million steps and I still have this self-negative chatter in my head. So we counter it. We need to participate. It's not going to come from anywhere else. So there are many, many other ways to do it, but tell yourself something kind. Tell yourself something loving. Tell yourself how brave you are. Laura, you can tell yourself how creative I am. I have these great ideas. I am so creative. I love my creativity. So make it alive versus an affirmation. If you have an affirmation that works for you and you can really feel it when you say it, and it's not just words that you are reading, then use it. But otherwise, have a conversation from a kind, loving place with yourself, and it will shift everything. It will relax your nervous system because your being wants to be in congruence with you being a whole, precious, divine, sacred, creative, ingenious, loving, kind human being, full of enthusiasm for life, for creating, for serving, for collaborating. That's your ideal state with its unique flavors that you have, different from me, from him, from her, from them. And so when you start the self-negative chatter in your head, you are out of alignment with who you are in your essence. And so it's just a repetitive, your brain is trying to create order. Your mind is trying to create homeostasis, to come back to harmony again. So that's why it's like a loopy kind of thought that just goes on and repeats itself, hoping kind of to maybe the system, I'll reboot the system, and this time around it will be better. We will get back to harmony. And harmony doesn't mean everything calm. It means every part of you gets to play their part to create the wonder that you are. And so that's what's going on. Your system, your nervous system, your mind, your brain is trying to reboot the system in the hope that next time it's going to be positive, it's going to be loving, it's going to be kind, and it just goes on, and another round of negative talk. So counter it with loving kindness towards yourself. Say beautiful sentences towards yourself. Tell yourself how gifted you are in a particular way that you are, in the unique way that you are. Tell yourself that you have gifts to offer the world, which are your unique gifts to offer the world. Tell yourself that while your idea might already exist out in the world, you're going to bring it in a unique way that nobody else can bring it in. Nobody else. And there are people out there who need your medicine exactly the way that you bring it into the world. There are many people who might say the same thing. There might many products. It might be the same product that you want to create, but you're going to bring your flavor into it. And there are people who are going to resonate deeply with, wow, I love the way that he or she or they produce, create this beautiful product in the world. So you need to participate. You need to show up for your life. I need to show up for my life. I need to participate in my own life. And the way to counter a negative chatter in your head is with a loving sentence. And remember that your mind and your brain, your whole nervous system are trying to reboot so that you can realign to your divine, sacred soul, an inner, higher being. Now, I want to just touch upon when you have negative chatter that's related to a conversation with someone. So you have a conversation with someone, you had a bit of a fight, it didn't work out well, and then you end up repeating the conversation in your head with them. So here it's a bit different, because here too, where it is similar is you're hoping that in the loopy conversation that you'll have with them in your head, a new result is is going to come out, but really you're just hurting and hurting and hurting. And it's just, it feels by the end when I've had it and when I do it, I just feel crushed at the end of it because I can never change what just happened. I cannot change the conversation. So I end up feeling so defeated by the end. And just, it's like abuse. I'm hammering on myself again and again and again. So here's something else can really help you. And that is to look underneath of what is the need that you had in the conversation that was not met. And I don't know what your need met. For many of us, it is, I wanted to be heard. I wanted to be seen. I wanted to be seen that where I was coming from was a good place. It was interpreted as negative or hurting or bad. Or maybe I was full of energy and I was a bit upset. And so I said it in a way that was perceived as harsh and negative. Or the person, regardless of me, felt defensive. They have their own truth in their head. This is what happened. Whatever you say doesn't matter. Facts matter, and I hold the facts. And there's no conversation. And so you don't feel heard. You don't feel seen. You don't feel understood. I know for me, that is a big thing. There are people who go, okay, so they didn't get me. If you don't understand where I'm coming from, it's hard for me to have a conversation because it's hard for me to continue because I feel like I'm not being seen for the good intention from which I'm coming from. I'm always willing to own when I'm coming from a bad conversation, when I'm coming from a bad intention. I'm willing to see this is what I did. I own it. But underneath all of it is always a good intention. And so when I'm misinterpreted and misunderstood, it's devastating for me because I feel so unseen. So the way to counter that after a conversation with someone that didn't work out is to see yourself. And so to see yourself, to feel yourself, to know yourself, to hear yourself, is to ask, what was the need underneath that I needed? And so because it's the need that was unmet. So if the need is unmet, what is that need? And my need is to be understood, that my intention was for my needs to be met, but also for your needs to be met. For me to be understood, but also to understand you. That is the most important part for me in any interaction with anybody, to understand them and where they're coming from, and equally to understand myself, but for them to understand me and where I'm coming from. And when that happens, it's a beautiful interaction. And when that doesn't happen, it doesn't go well. And so that is my need. And so then I need to see myself. I need to tell myself again from my heart a sentence that answers my need. For example, I know that your intention was to understand the other person. I know that you wanted to be heard. I hear you. I know your intention is good. I know it's important for you to be seen and to be heard. I know you want to be understood. I understand you. I hear that you have that need. I am listening to you now. I'm listening to your need to be understood. I understand that this is your need. I see that you want to be loved. I see that you want to be heard till the end. I understand that you want the other person to feel you. I am feeling you now. You bring that part out in you, and that becomes the listening, the understanding, the hearing, the being seen. And as you bring that part in, you counter, you're not busy with the other person anymore. You're here fulfilling the need that you had in the interaction that didn't happen. You're fulfilling it right here, right now. And guess what? The chatter subsides. The negative chatter in your head stops. Because now you are filling yourself and you are answering the need that was unmet, and that your nervous system and brain and mind are trying again to reboot. Maybe the next time I'll think about it, then I'll get my need met. Turn inwards, give yourself the need. There's so much more to interacting with other people and how you deal with it, but this is the first aid. This is the first aid that you do, is you come to your heart and you bring out the loving kindness part in you, the loving, kind, caring part in you, and you tell yourself from your heart something that you need to hear right now. And as you say it, you feel everything relaxing. I can feel it. I can feel it now from sharing this example with you. And I wasn't even thinking of an interaction. I can just saying that, I feel seen, I feel heard, I feel understood. And that's what I wish for you to do. So these are ways for you to stop the inner negative chatter in your head, whether it's with an interaction with someone, or whether it is you have a great idea, a project you want to do, a job you want to apply for, a person you want to reach out to, and then you have this chatter that tells you not to do it and that you're not worth it. And I'm not going to give more examples because I'm going to take myself into that state again, right? So I'm just going to stay here with how amazing we all are. You listening, me here, how unique we each are in our beauty, in our gifts, in our talents. And you can always just put your tongue heavy, and you can see that my jaw just relaxes and my voice relaxes, my shoulders and my neck relax, and that just stops whatever thought you're having, just stops automatically. So we end with this, and I'll see you in the next episode. I send you blessings of self-kindness, self-care, self-love, and kind words and loving words to yourself to align yourself with your divine, sacred, higher self, inner being, your soul. Blessings.